How often do we react to problems that really aren't problems? How often do we build things up to be such great obstacles in our life and they never actualize? How often do we worry for the sake of worrying? Well, if that sounded anything like you and that sounded like a problem that you struggle with, I really urge you to stick around in this video because we're going to talk about Cybernetics today, and in particular, Chapter 12 of Cybernetics, which tackles this issue. This is a part of an ongoing series. The rest of the videos that I've done on this will be somewhere at the end of this video in a card, or just go on my channel, you'll find the playlist. But Chapter 12, do-it-yourself tranquilizers which bring peace of mind. Tranquilizer drugs, which have become so popular during the past few years, bring peace of mind, calmness, and reduce or eliminate nervous symptoms by an umbrella action. Just as an umbrella protects us from the rain, the various tranquilizers erect a psychic screen between us and disturbing stimuli. No one fully understands just how the tranquilizers manage to erect this umbrella, but we do understand why this brings tranquility. Tranquilizers work because they greatly reduce or eliminate our own response to disturbing stimuli. So what he's going to say is he's comparing this to how the mind works, and he's comparing how these drugs actively reduce how we respond. And he's going to say, if you can respond less aggressively, if you can respond with less stress and less emotion, then they won't appear as strong, these problems that arise. And think of the person that when somebody cuts them off, they freak out, they get angry, and they become enraged. Is that a person that deals with their emotions very, very well? Is that a person that deals with stimulus very well? And it's just a microcosm of a larger problem. It's somebody that doesn't deal with stress, doesn't deal with things going wrong in an effective manner, and they allow the world to get to them. And the truth is, the only power you have in this world is your reaction. So if you can reserve your reaction, if you can reserve your emotion and put it to the people that you love and the people that deserve it in your life, that's the greatest gift you can give. It serves you nothing to hate somebody. It serves you nothing to hold a grudge on somebody and continually allow them to control your action, continually allow them to dictate what you do in life because of this strong hatred or strong negative emotion you feel for them. And this is something that I've really, really tried to control and curtail in myself and only put to the good things, because Lord knows whatever you want to see in this world, you will see more of. So why am I going to focus on the bad? Why am I going to focus on the things going wrong when I can focus on the things going right? Over-response is a bad habit which can be cured. Again, this is an idea that builds off of the thing I was just saying, that the more you react to something, the more of an issue it becomes. If you see a problem and you immediately start freaking out, the response you're going to have to that problem is going to be even worse because you've stressed yourself out. You have this anxiety, this fear built up in you, and because of your reaction, your response to the problem is going to become worse. If you can stay calm in a stressful scenario, then you can make a better decision. But if you become wrapped up in your emotions and clouded by your emotions, then oftentimes you're not going to make the best decision. How to condition yourself for equanimity. In much the same way that you automatically obey or respond to the ring of a telephone, we all become conditioned to respond in a certain way to various stimuli in our environment. The world conditioning in psychologic circles grew out of Pavlov's well-known experiments where he conditioned a dog to salivate at the sound of a bell by ringing it just before presenting food to the dog. This procedure was repeated many times. First, the sound of the bell. A few seconds later, the appearance of food. The dog learned to respond to the sound of the bell by salivating in anticipation of the food. Originally, the response made sense. The bell signified food was forthcoming, and the dog got ready by salivating. However, after the process was repeated a number of times, the dog would continue to salivate whenever the bell was rung. Whether or not food was immediately forthcoming, the dog had now become conditioned to salivate at the mere sound of the bell. His response made no sense and served no good purpose, but he continued to respond in the same way out of habit. There are a great many bells or disturbing stimuli in our various environmental situations which we have become conditioned to and which we continue to respond to out of habit, whether or not the response makes any sense. Think about when somebody cuts you off. Think about when some bad news comes out on the news stations. Think about when your team loses. Are any of these problems actually significant? Are any of these problems actually affecting your day-to-day? You could maybe argue an extension, the price is going up, this, that. But is anything drastically changing the way you live? Is anything drastically affecting what is happening today? Because very infrequently are we giving the right level of reaction to the things that are going on in our life. A lot of times we like to build up the things that we really can't control, and we like to blame those things for for why our life is going a certain way, and that becomes the boogeyman, that becomes the devil, that becomes the thing that you try to fight your entire existence against, instead of fighting your response to the problems, fighting how you react to the problem. Because I promise you, if you made the right decision in every single moment, your life would be a whole lot better. But it's a lot easier to blame and get emotional and get enraged and point the finger. But it really serves you no good, because nothing is going to come out of that. The only thing that's going to come out of that is your own heart attack, because you're going to drive yourself crazy. Your stress level is going to be off the chart, and you're going to put yourself in an early grave. How to extinguish conditioned responses. We can, however, extinguish the conditioned response if we can make practice of relaxing instead of responding. We can, if we wish, just as in the case of the telephone, learn to ignore the bell and continue to sit quietly and let it ring. A key thought we would carry with us is to use whenever we are confronted by any disturbing stimuli is to say to ourselves, the telephone is ringing, but I do not have to answer it. I can just let it ring. This thought will key in to your mental picture of yourself sitting quietly, relaxed, unresponding, doing nothing, letting the telephone ring unheeded, and will act as a trigger or clue to call upon the same attitude that you had when letting the telephone ring. So I have a really good story from Osho here, and he was basically telling a parable about a man who he was dying, and his son, he was going to be left with nothing, and he really had no riches. So he imparted onto his son this one piece of advice, and the piece of advice was, before you respond to anything, before you react to anything, give yourself a day to think. So every time this boy would be let down by someone, every time this boy would be wronged by someone, he would wait a day and go back to them. And by the time he responded, that emotion, that anger, that rage was no longer there, and he was able to respond rationally. He was able to take the other person's perspective. He was able to see why certain things happened, and because of this, he eventually became an enlightened individual, because he was just waiting, because he wasn't responding, because he wasn't reacting, because he was allowing himself to see the bigger picture. And essentially this is the same thing. Like, when you take a step back from the situation, then you see what's really going on. Like, it's really difficult to see when you're involved in a situation. It's really difficult to see what's going on when your emotions are involved. But when you allow yourself to just take a step back and just relax, and then really start thinking about things when those emotions go away, then things start to click, then things start to make sense. And it's a whole lot better to look back on things and rationalize them than to be heated in the moment, because when you're heated in the moment, that's when you say things you don't want to say. That's when you do things you don't want to do. And that's really the shortcoming of emotions, is that they can be beautiful, but they can also be haunting. And we too often give our credence to the haunting emotions instead of the beautiful ones. If you cannot ignore the response, delay it. And again, this is a very similar idea of avoiding the situation, allowing yourself to kind of work through it, allowing yourself to kind of have your space, have your time, think about it, process it, go through the stages of, I guess you would say, grief in this sense, and deal with it in a healthy way, because far too many people give that first response. If something bad happens, am I going to text that person right away and say, well, why didn't you do this? Or am I going to sit with that idea? Am I going to sit with that action and think about it for a little bit, and then give a more thought out, a more mature response? Allow my more negative emotions to get out before I tell them the things that I want to say to them. Like, it's really just removing yourself from the situation long enough to think about things and not let that first instinct out, because usually that raw emotion is unfiltered and it's going to burn bridges. Relaxation erects a psychic screen or tranquilizer. It is well to get clearly in your mind the fact that our disturbing feelings, our anger, hostility, fear, anxiety, insecurity, are caused by our own responses, not by externals. Response means tension. Lack of response means relaxation. It has been proved in scientific laboratory experiments that you absolutely cannot feel angry, fearful, anxious, insecure, unsafe as long as your muscles remain perfectly relaxed. All these things are, in essence, our own feelings. Tension in muscles is a preparation for action or getting ready to respond. Relaxation of muscles bring about mental relaxation or peaceful, relaxed attitude. This makes a whole lot of sense, because anytime I'm feeling emotionally worked up, what I do is I go to the gym and I get myself moving, I get my body going, and I guess you could say I'm tensing my muscles, but I'm also getting that emotional energy out. I'm getting that energy that otherwise would be tensed for that response, and I'm using it for something more productive. I'm using it for something that isn't degenerative or isn't negative in terms of the response that I would have given if I was just upset and I was just lashing out in anger. And I think there's all sorts of things that you can do. I really advocate for meditation, but if you don't want to meditate, then I really say that just find ways to calm yourself down. Find ways to bring back perspective to your life. And one of the greatest ways to bring back perspective to your life, I oftentimes say it, is to get out a sheet of paper and write down the blessings you have. It's simply the easiest way to find happiness is to find gratitude, and it can immediately shift you out of a state of anger. It can immediately shift you out of a state of pure disgust and pure rage. Build yourself a quiet room in your mind. Men seek retreats for themselves, houses in the country, seashores, and mountains, and thou too art wont to desire such things very much, said Marcus Aurelius. But this altogether a mark of the most common sort of men, for it is in thy power whenever thou shalt choose to retire into thyself. For nowhere, either with more quiet or more freedom from trouble, does a man retire than into his own soul, particularly when he has within him such thoughts that by looking into them he is immediately in perfect tranquility. And I affirm this tranquility is nothing else than the good ordering of the mind. Constantly then give to thyself this retreat and renew thyself. Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. During the last days of World War II, someone commented to President Harry Truman that he appeared to bear up under the stress and strain of the presidency better than any previous president, that the job did not appear to have aged him or sapped his vitality, and that this was rather remarkable, especially in view of the many problems which confronted him as a wartime president. His answer was, I have a foxhole in my mind. And I don't agree with anything Harry Truman did. I don't really like him as a president, but that's a very good example of somebody being able to deal with stress by simply removing themselves from the situation, by simply allowing themselves to take a break and take a break from existence and understand that things are going to change and things are going to adapt, and it's our response and how we respond with our emotions, energy, time, attention that are really going to dictate the way that the rest of our life goes. Your own decompressing chamber. Each of us needs a quiet room inside his own mind, a quiet center within him, like the deep of an ocean that is never disturbed, no matter how rough the waves may become upon the surface. This quiet room within, which is built in imagination, works as a mental and emotional decompressing chamber. It depressurizes you from tensions, worry, pressures, stresses, and strains, refreshes you and enables you to return to work a day world better prepared to cope with it. So one of the greatest things that you can do on a daily basis, I'm sure he's going to say, you have to find activities that de-stress you, but while I'm thinking about it and while it's in my head and fresh, going on walks, removing yourself from the worldly sense of things and just getting away will really free up your mind, will really get you away from the stresses and the things that are bothering you and allow you to reset your mind and return to a project refreshed. So, whenever I'm working on something and it's just not going according to plan and it feels like things aren't clicking, I get up, I go on a walk for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and when I come back, everything's brand new. Everything's refreshed. I may have walked several miles, but after walking those several miles, I feel refreshed. I feel like I just slept 20 hours straight and I'm ready to conquer the world. So, reminder, if you're really, really struggling with things, take a little break. Do your dishes, do your laundry, clean your room, go on a walk, find something manual to do that's mindless and just lose yourself in that activity, and then return and see how things feel. A little vacation every day. Whenever you have a few spare moments during the day between appointments, riding the bus, retire into your quiet room. Whenever you begin to feel tension mounting or feel hurried or harried, retire into your quiet room for a few moments. Just a few minutes taken from a very busy day in this manner will more than pay for themselves. It is not time wasted but time invested. Say to yourself, I'm going to rest a bit in my quiet room. So a really easy way to do this is the easiest way to think about meditation is close your eyes and allow the world to just happen. Because when you try to control the world, that's when you exist in the active plane of things. That's when you exist in your day-to-day life. That's when you do things that expect a certain result. Meditation is purely just allowing the world to exist and allowing the world to work and stop needing to control things. Allow yourself to give up control of the world. Close your eyes and meditate on that idea. Think about that idea and just relax. You need a certain amount of escapism. And this is an idea that I think most people don't quite understand, that everything in some sort of ways is escapism. It's just some things are more productive than others. So just be careful with your time. I think there's certainly better uses of your time than others, but I'm not going to be that person that says that if you're not actively doing something at all times, it's very, very bad for you, and you need to be more productive than everyone else to succeed. This is an idea I used to have, and this is an idea that took me a long time to get over, but looking out on the other side of it, that's just how you kill your creativity. That's just how you kill your love for life and your lust to go do things, and your lust to go, find fulfillment in your day-to-day pleasures. So really find time each day to do things that you enjoy and do things that develop you. Obviously we're on a channel that reads a lot of books. I think a great one is to read a lot of books, listen to podcasts, listen to people with interesting ideas, find in some way to remove yourself from the scenarios of life and learn something. I think learning is one of the best ways to escape the stresses of the world. Clear your mechanism before undertaking a new problem. This is basically the idea of don't carry your life over into your work. Think about it this way. If you start a project worrying about something else, then how are you going to give your best on that project? Each task is its own contained world and its own contained set of problems, so don't take the rest of the world and impart that onto the issue. Allow things to be fresh, allow things to be started from brand new. Don't put your preconceived notions and the way you've done things in the past into it. Just allow yourself to work. Insomnia, rudeness are often emotional carryovers. Again, this is just the idea of carrying over the problems of your life into other things. Think about arguments you have. Are you really mad at that person, or are you just mad at the things that have been happening to you lately? I think a lot of our issues that we have with significant others, friends, loved ones, just people in general, is just us being dissatisfied with our life and taking that emotion and taking that energy out on someone else. Emotional carryover causes accidents. Insurance companies and other agencies which do research on causes of accidents have found that emotional carryover causes many automobile accidents. Again, I've said this several times throughout the video, but people that overreact when they get cut off in traffic or overreact and get road rage, those are usually the people that are causing accidents. Those people that are doing things irrational. Like it's a very serious thing to do, and there's life-threatening consequences, so please don't do it. Calmness carries over too. And again, this is the idea that if you can calm yourself down, then in the next moment you can respond with more rationality. You can respond with a bird's eye view of the situation, and you can respond more effectively. Build your own psychic umbrellas. Again, this is the same idea of being able to retreat into your mind, being able to stop yourself from reacting, and when you catch yourself overreacting, catch yourself and understand that, these problems are going to pass. The more I overreact, the worse it's going to be for myself. Your emotional stabilizer. In almost every goal-striving situation, our own inner stability is in itself an important goal to maintain. We must be sensitive to negative feedback data, which advises us when we're off course, so that we can change direction and go forward. But at the same time, we must keep our own ship afloat and stable. Our ship must not be tossed and rocked and perhaps sunk by every passing wave or even a serious storm. As Prescott Leckie expressed it, the same attitude must be maintained in spite of environmental changes. Again, I oftentimes say this, but stop thinking about the damn results. Stop fighting strawman. Still another type of inappropriate response which causes worry, insecurity, and tension is the bad habit of trying to respond emotionally to something which doesn't exist except in our own imaginations. Think about when you're about to start a problem and you think about the consequences before you've ever done them. You want to start a YouTube channel, but you're worried about how people are going to respond. You're worried about the comments. These are imaginary fears. These are imaginary things that haven't yet happened. Maybe they'll come in the future, but deal with them when they come. Don't deal with the stress of something before it has even materialized. Doing nothing is the proper response to an unreal problem. Again, why are you reacting when something is not even real? You're reacting to imaginary demons that you have created in your own mind, and you're giving power to them through your attention. Your first aid kit. Carry these thoughts with you as a sort of first aid kit. Inner disturbance, or the opposite of tranquility, is nearly always caused by over-response, a too sensitive alarm reaction. Okay, practice exercise. Create in your imagination a vivid mental picture of yourself sitting quietly, composed, unmoved, letting your telephone ring as outlined earlier in this chapter. Then in your daily activities, carry over the same peaceful, composed, unmoved attitude by remembering this mental picture. Say to yourself, I am letting the telephone ring. Whenever you are tempted to obey or respond to some fear bell or anxiety bell, Next, use your imagination to practice non-response in various sorts of situations. See yourself sitting quietly and unmoved while an associate rants and raves. See yourself going through your daily task one by one, calmly composed, unhurried, in spite of pressure of a busy day. See yourself maintaining the same constant, stable course in spite of various hurry bells and pressure bells in your environment. See yourself in various situations which have in the past upset you, only now remain set, settled, poised by not responding. Okay. And then the last part of the chapter is your physical thermostat, that no matter the temperature, your body always remains the same temperature unless you're very sick. So if it's a different temperature, get checked out. But let's talk about the practice exercise and then we'll end this video. The practice exercise is super fascinating because it's basically forcing yourself to deal with your own issues. Like, one of the greatest understandings of yourself is when you can look back at the things that have haunted you, when you can look back at the things that you've really struggled with, and you no longer respond emotionally to them. That's a sign of your maturity. That's a sign of your growth. And when you can start doing that, then you've started to overcome some of those demons that have haunted you in the past. And that's really how you test yourself. Start to look at situations. Start to take that other person's side. Start to look through a situation in that person's eyes and come to grips with it. And once you start doing it with the people that you hate, and you start coming to terms with them, and you can start to love that person, you can start to see their side, and you can start to rationalize with them and understand where they're coming from. That's when you can start to move forward, and you're no longer bothered by things because you see the bigger picture. And this was a tremendous chapter. This was something that is taking my voice away now, so I'm not going to talk too much longer, but I really enjoyed reading this to you. I'm going to continue reading this to you. I think there's 15 chapters, and yeah, if you want to see the rest of the videos, they will be linked probably right about now, because the cards should be coming up with the playlist. And yeah, with that said, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys for all the support recently. If you want to pick up my book, it's somewhere over there, but I just released a book, so if you liked any of the things I said in that, I know you're gonna like the book. If you want the things I write on a more frequent basis, then go ahead, join the school community. I kind of treat that like a Substack, where I just put my thoughts and put poems and little things I write. But yeah, if none of that sounded interesting and you made it this far, I still love you all the same. So peace out. I'll catch you guys in the next one.